Hello and good morning, everyone. It is 8:33 here. It's time for a little morning stream. We're continuing the tradition of the mocha pot Americano, but today I'm using like a darker bean, so it's a bit harsher actually. I'm not sure I like that bean. Hello, Kiran. Welcome. Let me see here. I didn't prepare things perfectly today here. My setup. Like that. Oh, I need to put the trash can on the cat set. Like that. So, yesterday we did... What did we do? Let's have a look. We were playing around with this, my old prototype, this kind of what I call... What the hell is still going on with this one? I was playing around with this old prototype. That I will start now. This one. I was playing around with. I got it compiling again because it's I hadn't touched it for a year. And then sorry, I'm moving this arm. And then I spent a lot of time yesterday talking about like, because I kind of started like trying to put the calls to Railib. So I have in game here, game.odin, we have like, for example, draw a rectangle, draw texture maybe, like this one. So this was like an RL or draw texture rec or something like that. And I started toying around with the idea of, you know, doing my own, initially like a wrapper for Railib, but in the long run maybe changing the API to something different, both so that you know, I have better ownership of the sort of platform and rendering layers and stuff. Maybe a bit inspired by Eskil Stenberg's talk, but not to complete. Like he talks a bit about the architecting big software, large software talk he did. Well, you might not know it, but I can link it in the chat. I mean, in that one he talks a lot about plugin based architecture. I think that's mostly good for software that has like users that need to actually plug things in. This is currently not on GitHub, no. Hello Marcus and Sukal and Kiran and Budget Jim and Ninad. Yeah. Wait, what did I just link this video? I'm tired. I was supposed to link... Okay, ignore that link in the chat. I was supposed to link Eskil's talk. Eskil Stenberg. I was supposed to link this. I was supposed to link this one. It's a quite interesting. I don't think it's there we go. I don't think it's applies to all programs, because he's like trying to more talk about like I think maybe if you make a game engine like Unity, for example, then maybe this is a good way to do it. But if you're making a game and you just want to make the game, maybe not. But anyways, but he talks a bit about just having a platform layer and owning that. And I thought a bit about, well, maybe I'll see what I can do with like initially wrapping Railib, and then I'll refine the API and stuff like that. So what I've done since yesterday is I spent a lot of yesterday also philosophizing about packages in Odin. Well, not really. Wait. Debug draw circle. Yeah. So I spent a lot of time yesterday thinking about how to design APIs in Odin, right? So, and I think that's maybe the main takeaway, like both from previous workplaces I've had and Eskil's talk, because he likes this kind of black box approach. I don't think that maybe it's good to have a stable API, but you don't need to, close everything off. But it should at least be a file that's like, here is the API, and this is what you should probably use. And then, if you want to, you can go and poke at things behind the curtain. That I think is fine. But with Odin, it's a bit troublesome sometimes because you don't have just everything that's just, not private is just exported. So your procedures can be anywhere, and also the procedures have the body attached directly. I mean, if we go into like this procedure, if you look around in this file, it's a bit hard to get an overview because you have all the bodies of the procedures here, right? So it's like you can't just scroll around. So maybe you need to go into the docs. Hello, Taylor. Welcome. Good morning, Hugo Games and Smilex. But we have stuff like if this was the never mind this underscores here, but if this was the API and you scroll around there, it's a bit hard to get an overview. Although in the core, many core libs in Odin, it does work like that, and over time you kind of build yourself a picture of what's available. But in Raylib, when I started using it initially, I kind of liked having this. I kind of liked having this file and just look around in it. So, but this is because it's a C-lib, right? So it has a foreign thingy here, but if you pre-compile an Odin lib, then you could make one of these and just say Odin here instead, and then it would be like a header. You could do that. That would also be useful, and there was a bit of discussion because I wrote about this in the Odin Discord. I was like, Odin currently doesn't have any way to provide an interface or provide what a header would usually do in C, or like what these kind of bindings do. Odin doesn't have anything to do this. Like if you just have a DLL, if I just give you a DLL with precompiled Odin code in it, then there's currently no way to, in a standardized way in Odin, say what does this one contain. Well, you could make a foreign block like this and import the lib, of course. That's possible, but then that file is not the same that you use for importing the lib normally when you don't use the precompiled one. But yeah, maybe it's a tooling problem. Maybe it's a tooling problem, like Smilex says. That you can go through an API and list all the definitions and maybe take out the comments and put them nicely. Maybe that's it. But also, if you think a bit about APIs, like if you look at Raylib, if you look at raylib.h in the C version, I didn't wait. I thought I had that. Scraps. This is wrong. If you look at this file, when the Rail developers make Raylib, they will be like, okay, we can change around some stuff in implementation, but changing stuff in this file, which is the main API for the whole library, that's like, you have to really, really, really careful. Like, do you just change a name? Is it backwards compatible? Is it breaking? Then maybe it needs to be from major version change. These kind of things happen when you get a lot of code. So if your whole API is just generated from what is publicly available in the package, and you have a popular library that's used by many people, then you want it to be stable, right? And then what will happen is that you will, because if this file was like, imagine this file was for an Odin library, like it was this, and this was kind of Raylib implemented in Odin or whatever. Then, I mean, the API could accidentally be changed by just changing the code. Like, you could just, like, you didn't think that one procedure was even used. Maybe it's used internally by the code, like there's some code in there that uses a procedure, so you change it. So you added like I don't know what you would do. You added something here, blah, 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 and you just broke the API, but you didn't notice. But then, of course, what you could do is also add in like another tool to like make sure to alert you if there's any changes to this file, to the generated file. That's certainly possible. So maybe that's fine. I was just a bit like, should Odin maybe have, I was thinking, should Odin maybe have like you can still use the publicly available procedures and everything publicly available on a package. But then I was thinking, what if you really want a handwritten stable API, maybe it would be nice if you could do like, you can do this. I actually had an example from yesterday, I think. Was this file? Let's see what's in here. Yeah, I was thinking something like this. That if you imagine if you had well, this is completely, that's the wrong stuff. So you had like foreign lib, and then maybe you had some of these maybe. Is it? Say that you had something like this. And then, of course, these guys go away. So imagine you had something like this. Then you would be like, if you can, then you can import as DLL, right? If you want that, or you can do this. This is what is the idea I had. Like, oh, if you do this, something like that. It doesn't have to be like that. Then it could be like, then it imports the package itself. So then these procedures actually bind to procedures publicly available in this package. So you can use this API both for when you want a DLL. So you have that, because that's not possible. There's nothing like that right now unless you generate it. Or if you want a lib file, no, or if you want to, what am I saying, lib file, or if you want to interact with this package through a stable API that's defined by this file, and then it sort of becomes like a header, but it's only for the front-facing API, and it's optional. It's for people who want that rigidity. It's not like you need to use it. It's not like headers are required suddenly. It's just that it's just a contract sort of what the thing. And then any changes to this file, if this file pops up in the source control, then you're like, wait, who did something? Yeah. But that yeah, I personally wouldn't hate that. You in a big lib, you like this is for, you know, a library that where you want to make slow changes to the API. So you probably, maybe you start without a file like this, and then you use the normal Odin. Is the what's public in the package is what's exposed, and then you can make this kind of file at some point, and it becomes sort of the contract of it, and then you will notice if things change, and then you can make everything else in the package, like package private or something. Although that goes a bit counter to the whole Odin philosophy of that it's nice to have like a public API, but you don't need to hide the other things just because that's, you know, it doesn't really serve a purpose many times. Anyways, it's just philosophizing a bit. Excuse me. But I think that's a good, like, it's a good idea, like, absolutely not start having headers in the API, but and I haven't slept much. It's good to not, you know, I don't want it, you know, the language to start having headers, but just being able to use like an explicit foreign lib kind of reuse the foreign lib so that you can get your DLL or precompiled lib bindings combined with, and at the same time you can also make a stable API definition so that it's obvious when you change it. It's completely obvious. Anyways, that's just what I was thinking about yesterday. Let's see if the coffee cures my brain fog. So what I did yesterday was I did some experiments with how to make an API. So I have like, this is like an API file. It sort of looks, you know, like if you compare it to like a Raylib API file. It has some structs up here and some procedures down here, if you compare them side by side. And then you have like the API surface down here. And then you could of course be like, you could say interesting things like blah blah documentation about the procedures and stuff, and then you will get this nice overview. The thing that I talked a bit about in another reason I wanted the sort of use the foreign stuff to do this was that I didn't want to have too much boilerplate in here. I want this to be easy to do. So initially someone was like, because with this stuff, right, you would not need to, this init will just bind to the package itself, so it doesn't, you don't need to have like an underscore init copy of it that it actually then calls into. They don't need to have like an underscore init like this one doesn't shadow the one that's already in there. That was my idea, at least. But so because a common way to do it would be like, what's a good example here? Draw texture rect. So if this one was like a proc, then a common way that's used in the core libraries, for example, is to do this. Text rect pos. Like that, right? So you call an underscore. So then you can get like also this is used sometimes when you have one front-facing API and have multiple platforms, and then the platform-specific ones implement like this with the underscore. And you have like it's just to, because otherwise it gets a bit like if you implement like just draw texture rect directly for each platform. So like say that there is like a one file for Windows, one file for Linux, and one file for Mac, and they all just have like load texture like this exposed. Then, you know, the API becomes very sort of, depending which platform, maybe you've forgotten one procedure, it becomes strangely implicit based on what platform you're on. So that's also a good reason why the core libs do something like this sometimes, to have like an API. But I was like, this boilerplate stuff here, like especially when you get many of them, it's the kind of stuff that I'm like, it's just unnecessary and annoying and makes me not want to do it. But then I realized I can actually create a constant of a fixed type and then alias that as the thing, and that actually works. There's some funny things like, for example, this stuff here. You have the default argument here. This one doesn't really work. This one is just like writing runtime.allocator, and this doesn't do anything. It just takes the type of it and it doesn't do anything. The one that does something is the one in the sort of implementation file, or whatever you call it. This one, this does something, but this sort of documents what it does. But it's weird because you could write just like this. And then it will still have a default value because it's actually an alias of this. It's a bit, it's a bit of a side effect of using an alias. And also another thing you can't do here is when you use if you did this instead, if you did a proc like that with, then called it, then this one could be package private. Like you could do like this. You could do like the plus private package or use private. That would work to reach this one. But when you alias them, then they have the same visibility. And since then you can't sort of do you can't do this stuff if you had them packaged private. But on the other hand, why have them packaged private? It doesn't really. The main thing is that you can look at this file and be like, okay, I can see the API. So I was just playing out that. I think, however, that well, we'll see if I continue doing this, or like I need to sort of just at the start here just make the API. This is not a too big hassle to make this extra API file. It wouldn't be a big hassle at all, once the API is stable to keep this up to date. People often, I think, they're afraid of something like this file, the header file for Raylib. They're afraid of, because when they're just starting to write their code, it's a lot of work to keep this here and then keep the implementation one. The same thing here. You have to keep this thing here and then keep the one over here. They think it's a lot of extra work and it's annoying. And I understand that. But you have to think in the long term, like in the long term, it's not going to be a problem, because then it's just going to provide a value instead. Like, I can clearly see if someone changed the API, and you don't change things that often if you get some kind of stability going. But I guess what you could do is you could initially just, not have that file and just do public stuff like this. And then you, at some point, so-called stabilize the API by adding a file like this and putting things in this way, for example. So maybe that's what we're gonna do. But on the other hand, I kind of like having this here, because yeah. Yeah, no, we'll keep it like that for now. We'll see how it goes. So let's continue doing some stuff here. Hello, Palonko. And Sokol wrote something about, I really like what Hazelight did for AngelScript LSP extension for VS Code. It adds an AngelScript API panel in the sidebar that's a trio API search bar. And yeah, this is the thing. It's like some of these things can be solved by tooling. Question is always what should be solved by tooling and what should be like, intrinsic to the code itself, so that, for example, I could open a project on GitHub or just download it and open it in like any crappy text editor and just have a look. That's I'm kind of more on that. It's good if there's tooling that generates stuff and checks if things are good. But the programming language should be very easy to use in a crappy text editor. Maybe that's reasonable, because then then you're not making assumptions of what kind of workflow someone has. But yeah. So we have some Raylib stuff here going on. I'm a bit tired, so we'll see if I can even make any sense out of all this. See if this still compiles. If I broke something, no, good. So for those who don't know, I have this little prototype here. For those who joined later, this is from last year, but I was just bringing it back to life. And then I thought like, oh, maybe I want like a graphics layer, my own graphics layer that currently uses Raylib, but maybe I can replace Raylib if I wrap it, and then we can make a little Odin version of Raylib, or not version of Raylib, but something different that changes the things I don't like and is more Odin-esque or something like that. So we're just sort of wrapping stuff like that. So let's just continue. We have this get screen height, get screen width here. There is a question if that's maybe I want get screen size instead. You often want both, and in Odin it's easy to do like swizzling. Question is then if these are like interesting little like when would you use an int and when you would use a float. I would guess for a screen width and screen height I wouldn't, so then this float vector wouldn't work. So then it's the question, do I add a vec2i, which is a 2 of, and then there are more questions like, do I, in Raylib, they use int, the c int, which is on this, it's usually a 32-bit int. In Odin, int is platform dependent, what it means. But in Odin, you tend to just use int anyways when it doesn't matter. Like, it's not going to be a big deal if it's uses 16 or 8 bytes for returning the screen size. I mean, you can see here that I use window width and window height. I just used int. So we're just going to do that. So we call this one get screen size. It is a proc that returns a vector2 int. And it is bound to underscore get screen size. So this is sort of how I then write the API. Yeah. And then I just go in here somewhere, plop in the and for now, this will use like a Raylib backend. So what you would do here is just this. But eventually it would replace things, and it wouldn't like just my I don't like how Raylib is sort of implemented in the way that it uses all these libraries like glfw, and then it uses maybe OpenGL. I think on Windows, maybe you can use Directory 11 and the Windows windowing API. Why do you want to make your own wrapper? Doesn't it just make unnecessary abstractions? Because then if you think of your own code, for your game, if that one calls into your own wrapper and it's code that you have, then you can easily replace that. If it calls directly into Raylib code, then you will have to at that point make that wrapper, and that might be too much work when you have made like 50,000 lines of code. But I'm not just making a wrapper. I'm making a wrapper initially to get out of Raylib and then re-implement something Raylib-esque in Odin. Without it, like this, just for now it will look a bit Raylib-ish because I can't do too many things at once. In a sense, you know, it's yeah. Well, I wouldn't say it's like generally a good way of going about libraries, but if it's a library that you use absolutely everywhere in your whole game like this, then having some kind of abstraction on top of it can be good because you're so dependent on it. Like you're essentially like, if say that you're spending 4 years making something and you are using a library everywhere, then you know the 4 years of your time is depending on that library, and being able to swap that out easily by just having, for initially you can have a wrapper, but you can you can replace the wrapper with the implementation with something else. But yeah, it's a curiosity. I haven't tried STL3, but really if it's STL3 or Raylib doesn't really matter. Eskil preaches wrapping every single library. Eskil talks about owning your platform layer, like it's important. I think especially he says like, okay, I can understand, you know, he says he can understand if you're just one person making something, you don't do that. But if you're a big company, then it's not a big investment relative to everything else to have like your own way to interface with the OS or the rendering or stuff. Like here's the thing I don't really understand. Companies that spend years and years and have lots of people who use things like instead of like, oh, on Windows we call like open window and check the input, they like using like STL or GLFW or something to do that. I mean, to me, the rendering code you've written and all the so-called business logic, all the logic in your program is an immensely much harder problem than opening a window and getting input and making sure to do all those things. It's just like with, you know, the kind of someone that you started like that and then got stuck there, and I'm like, and it's funny in Raylib, I think one of the biggest problems is GLFW. That library is, I don't know. I wish Raylib just like wrote a platform layer that was like, on Windows it opens, uses Win API. On Linux I don't know what you do anymore because you have Wayland and stuff. The problem with GLFW, I had issues with it when I was making my game. I don't remember really the exact problems, but it's like, you can think of it like this. Isn't it a bit weird that Raylib has spent so much, there was so much time spent on making Raylib, but it doesn't like implement the interfacing with the windowing with the OS. Maybe it's a Linux problem. Maybe I'm being ignorant about this, because on Windows it's not a big problem because it's like standardized. It's like you open window, you check input, good. It's not a big problem. I guess on Linux, because you have X11 and Wayland, and there's several ways to do it, right? It just seems a bit. But here's the thing about video games. Never make a Linux version. Use Proton. If you make a video game rendering library, just don't have a Linux version. Like, don't even make a Linux version of your library. Just use Proton. Because you're gonna have less compatibility issues. Like all the problematic bugs I had with Cat and Onion was on Linux due to compatibility problems between different Linux distributions and stuff. So don't support Linux. Just use Proton. That's my, because you're gonna save time and you're gonna have you're gonna save time and the game is gonna work better on Linux. But yeah, Palonka says, but GLFW is just doing the boilerplate, right? Yes, but if you want to replace, okay, GLFW is not a huge problem because you can replace what it does, but to me it's, I just don't understand why you use GLFW, because maybe it's because of Linux, right? Because to me it's not, if you compare it to everything else, it's not, like if you want to minimize dependencies, right? Because you might end up having trouble with them, and it's a bit weird how Raylib sort of, you call into Raylib and then it calls into this other library, but yeah. But I need to check what, I don't remember what my problems in Cat and Onion was with GLFW. That's why I'm a bit stuck. I know I had trouble in GLFW in Raylib, so I'm like, okay, in order to look at this, I need to like have debug builds of both and somehow step into that from Odin into Raylib into GLFW. It wasn't that fun. I can see here. Let me check. But I think you can use GLFW and everything, you know, all those libraries if you're just making something small yourself. But if you're at a big company, it's such a small thing to compared. But maybe it's not because of Linux. Well, you don't use OpenGL with WinAPI. Well, you can, but I would just use Direct3D, right? Trying to see if I find. What I did. I can't find it right now. There was I had some issues with it. I can't remember. Anyways, never mind that stuff. The screen size then. Yeah, you can use a D3D. You can use D3D with Proton. That's why so many games work on Proton. That because D3D stuff works. So you don't need to make Like, you don't need Vulkan, right? You can stop writing Vulkan because you can use Direct 3D on Windows and Metal on Mac if you want, and then use Proton. Don't need to use OpenGL. You don't need to use Vulkan. It's I think that the Proton devs say is that sometimes using Vulkan can give you slightly better performance on Linux, but it doesn't seem to be a problem. The switch runs on OpenGL Vulkan. Yeah, maybe then in that case it's a good if you need to target a switch. It depends on what you're doing, right? I mean, I can look at the game I made. It mostly sells on. I mean, I only have it on computers, but I could have skipped the native Linux version that uses Raylib, which uses OpenGL. But yeah, the main problems were on Linux. The only random crashes I've had is on Linux, and it seems to be to glibc maybe problems. I'm not even sure at this point what's wrong with it. You said that it supports certain versions of Ubuntu or something, but I just try the Windows version instead. Skip the Linux version. I'm sorry if my the reason for not using GLFW was inconclusive, because I don't remember why I had trouble with it. But yeah. Here is an interesting problem in Odin. So I have a vec2i and vec2 in my own. Well, these are actually, no, never mind, that's not a problem. These two are mutually, these are not distinct, right? So you can usually make interchangeably, but for example, this rect here is, well, it's a distinct type because it's a struct. So if I have a rect type in my game, in my other code, then it's not compatible with this one. Which I could of course just alias this one as the main one, but then sort of this rendering API becomes the truth of what is a rect, which can be a bit weird. But yeah. Now I'm just like, now you get ints here, but I want floats here. But I guess I can do this vec2 from vec2i. I guess that works. Screen size dot. I don't know if that's better. Oh. Yeah, I don't know if that's better, but Okay, here I use get screen height like that. That's the question is, does one want a vector representation of sizes like that? Or is it better? Like, does Raylib do that because returning a integer vector is weird? Or is it because it's useless? It's not a big deal which one you use. If you use width and height and or a combine, because there are many times when I want a vector, but then on the other hand, I mean, you can of course have both. You can have like screen width, but having these kind of duplications in the API that do seemingly the same thing. So this would be like this. Maybe to have direct compatibility with everything that uses vectors. Yeah. It's just what's most useful, to have width and height come out separately like that, or have them come out as a vector, or have both. I think both is a bit weird, because you can easily wrap that in your code if you really need it. Okay, it should be like this for the reason that when you pass it here, you pass it as a width and height, and it just feels right somehow. So it's a bit weird to like pass a vector here of integers, because it just feels like two separate numbers. I mean, it is a size. It is a size in X and Y, but it's, yeah, I don't know. It just one of those things that feels a bit strange to pass like a size as a integer vector, because it doesn't really have a meaning. It doesn't really, like, if you think of vector, like these floating point vectors, like you think of them like, oh, it's I take a position here because, you know, you do so much vector math, but it's not like you're running around doing vector math in that way on your window sizes. So they have no natural reason to be of vector type, other than that it seems tidy. And if you do things just because they seem tidy, sometimes it's yeah. So we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna go. Another reason people like, there have been some people who've wrapped Raylib in an Odin-esque wrapper, just so that the types, like, you can use normal Odin strings and you can use integers instead of C-ints. Like, it becomes a tiny bit nicer to interact with. That's a common reason why people do it too. I think that's a fine enough reason. But what you can do is you can wrap it for those reasons, but then it's also good because then you can later replace it with something else if you want to, without, I mean, people might be like, well, can't you just replace, if you have RL dot stuff everywhere in your code, can't you just replace that if you need to? Well, there are gonna be like, it's gonna be quite hard to, then you're gonna have to do that sort of thing where you make a wrapper at that point, and if you already have like 40,000 lines of code, then doing this step-by-step transfer over, you're gonna have big trouble. It's gonna be very annoying. So therefore, I would say that it is a bad idea to, like, you can try to choose early at some point if you want to use the straight API or not. But another reason for for example, GLFW, like why would not you want to use it? Well, if you use GLFW straight up inside your own application to open a window, you can do that, of course. But if you make a library that then in turn uses it, then imagine that you have the library pre-compiled. Not that you always do that in Odin, but imagine that you have a C library, like you have Raylib, and you want to look at what the program is doing, and then it steps into GLFW, and then you're like, oh, I don't have that one as a debug build, blah blah blah. So then you can't just step into it. So it becomes this one extra layer of indirection, and that's usually fine. That's usually fine if maybe if you have like, oh, this is my video game and I call GLFW. But if you're in a video game called Raylib and then you call GLFW, it's like it's gonna be more frictious to get into a good debugging workflow. Like you're gonna have to okay, I'm gonna have to find GLFW somehow and replace it with debugs things. So I would say the flatter your library hierarchies is also good. But still, if you make like if you make a big library, like a big rendering library, for example, then I don't think that handling the window management is gonna be your biggest problem. But maybe it is not true. Maybe it is the biggest problem on Linux. I don't know. It's also, I remember I had an old workplace where we were like, we were looking at redoing how we do our game engine tools, and someone was like, oh yeah, we use Qt to open the window, and someone was like, why do you pull in this massive Qt thing to open a window and then not use Qt? They're like, it's hard to open window. I'm like, you're making a game engine, it's so easy compared to everything else. I don't know why people are so, I think they want to get going quickly, so they want to open a window and then do the fun part. But and I get that for home, like when you're doing something at home. But when you're doing it like we're doing this big professional project with lots of people, Qt. But the same thing, like if you're like, oh, I just want to open a window, yeah, in the beginning all you want is result, but in the end all you want is control. Yeah, so you have to be a bit aware of that. But I think if you're a bigger company that has the resources, then you can like put someone on like do the things, implement this. I'm very tired today, so I lose my train of thought all the time, and I write the wrong thing. Like I'm just making a wrapper for a procedure, and it's taking me forever. But that's also because I'm talking about random things. But I'm just like, I noticed that I talk and I kind of like, I don't remember what I was talking about anymore. So I have to like stop and like, what am I talking about? Was it screen height? Yes. Aha, here comes. Fun. Maybe a nap would be good. Yeah, but I just woke up. But I had to do some things later, so... Wow! This is the wrong size. I think the camera... Width, height. Maybe this one returns the wrong thing. Height, width. No? Maybe this one is bound to the wrong things. No? What's going on? This is supposed to be height, not width. That's what's wrong. There you go. So we have draw text left, and then we have some input. And stuff. And that's also a question, like, do you make... Maybe now I make like a Raylib wrapper-ish thing. But do you make... Do I just make like a rendering library and then like an input library, or do I do like all of them combined or something? Who knows? Another thing I was thinking about this whole thing with Linux, I say that, oh, don't make like if you're making a game, don't make a native Linux version. I can understand if you want to work on Linux, like if your main development platform is Linux, then maybe it's nice to have a native version because it's easier to start and debug and stuff. So I can understand for that in that case. But if you're not on Linux and you want a Linux version, then don't make a Linux version. Just at least check if Proton works, because you might. It's the best compatibility layer for Linux. Palonka asked, is there a way to have a prefix on your library calls in C, like, you know, I mean, rlog screenshot, for example? Well, the library, you know, when you import things in C, whatever is in the, like we have raylib.h here, whatever it says in here is dumped into your global namespace. So you can't like change the prefix at the import site. If they have provided some, like Raylib is also a bit weird because most libraries would do something like this. Raylib doesn't prefix anything, and then you have collisions in your you have collisions. There is many cases of Raylib colliding with other libraries when you import something else. For example, I think you can just import some Windows API libraries and some names will collide because they're not namespaced. Because in C you're supposed to namespace things if you don't want. Like you're supposed to manually just put the thing in front. So yeah. Right now I'm just wrapping Raylib right now, but I hope that I can put my own implementation on top. Like swap that, like I make that wrapper and then I have this API file here, right? And then I make a new implementation file that's empty with you stubbed out, and then I try implementing like my own version of it directly in Odin, maybe on Windows first with like Win API calls and Direct 3D 11 or something like that. I mean, I could use Vulkan, but then I get sad. Okay, let's look at the key presses, because that's the biggest thing here, I think. Raylib, keyboard key. Okay, this is how Raylib does keyboard keys. It just has a huge enum, What are these numbers? That's the It's what's it called? The IDs of them, right? Do you have any experience with WGPU? No, I haven't tried it. It seems quite interesting because you can use it on desktop as well. There is a Odin example in the, if you go into the, maybe it's in the examples repository or in somewhere else. But there is a web GPU example that runs both in the browser and on desktop. Raylib is nice, but when you want to integrate it in a UI framework, it gets complicated. Yeah, maybe. I've made my own UI frameworks on top of Raylib, but just, in immediate mode, like draw rectangle, draw thing, button, stuff like that. But maybe you have some specific needs. Now these are also the ASCII numbers, this keyboard key. I mean, this is capital A. If you look at, for example, an ASCII table like this, you have capital A is in decimal 65. But I don't think they what's it called? So we have, here are the Windows key codes. We have A. This is in hex. Sometimes I am bad at hex, so I pull out the programmer mode on a calculator, change to hex, type it in, and change the decimal, and then it's a 65. So these also seem a bit like, I don't know if all platforms use, like, I'm trying to think of what did they base this on. Left bracket. Delete. Virtual key delete. 2E. What's 2E? 46. No, that's not. Yeah, so these are 70. What's 70? 112. Yeah, so they're not Windows key codes. There is something else. Maybe it's the GLFW virtual key codes. Yep. And what are these based on? USB HID usage tables. Yeah. So these have so the reason Raylib looks like this, the reason this enum is like this is because it just seems just to be either copied from this or from this stuff. Interesting. keypads here. Yeah, this is straight up. Straight up the same. There's a few here. Back. Menu. Huh? Oh, this is Android. I was like 5. Interesting. Okay. Remap to 7. Well, let me see. What do you mean? But rearrange to. Yeah, I think they just mean that these guys live on the same as the ASCII. So A is at 65 because that's the ASCII. Also, yeah, these guys live at the same range. I don't know if they did that in the other one. But maybe that's a very good system. I don't know. I don't have a good system for this. I mean, that the nice thing about doing it like that is you could convert it to a char and just print it. And for A to Z, it would print the thing. Well, I'm gonna steal this. Because it's already. Let's put this below here, and then we will. These are the funniest thing because I guess they provide some kind of value. But these comments are just. For these I don't need. All these comments. Yeah, I'm just doing a wrapper of sort of Raylib stuff so that I can replace it later. I have a little game running, right? And I'm just wrapping all the calls into Raylib right now, and then I want to replace it eventually, just to have more control, investigate how to do something similar to Raylib in Odin. You know, it's a bit mixed bag of ideas, really. Why? Also because I thought it sounded fun. Yeah, I was missing over STL and Raylib as backends. Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to stay half close to Raylib sometimes because it does make some assumptions, and then I can stub out everything and make my own renderer, and then when I do that I can shift things away from if I don't like some things. There are some things with Raylib, right? Raylib only supports having one window. I think I also just want that because it simplifies the API because you don't need to pass a window everywhere, and I've never made a game with more than one window. Like, there are always these people like, oh, I wish we could do that because I had this super strange idea for a game that has 2 windows. But I'm like, then you don't use a library like that, maybe. Or use another library that supports it. But those libraries tends to be a bit more annoying. I kind of like that there is no, you don't have to pass like the lib state, blah 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 here everywhere. Like there is a global state. Yeah, maybe on the 3DS you have multiple windows, but yeah, then you would probably make everything very custom. Or maybe on the 3DS it's just like a tall window with where you just render. Like maybe it's just a tall window and you render the bottom half differently. I don't know how it works. I mean, it's the same on. Yeah, it's on DS, yeah. I like how we call it carlib. Yeah, that name is not fine. I just wrote something yesterday. It's probably not gonna stay. Someone made breakout with windows for blocks. Gosh. Key null. So all these are a bit weirdly named now. Null. None. For numeric keys. All these should be like that, kind of. Why did it remove my... Ugh. Maybe there is a way to do this in a better way. I don't like... there's a reason I don't like alignment that much. But let's just copy the... this, and we do this, and we do like that. I've actually added a little... this convert case to other case doesn't happen in Sublime. There's no such thing. I just added it. I modified the plugin a bit. Because you use other case a lot in Odin. That's the upper camel case with an underscore. These are abbreviations, should not be changed. These can be changed. No. I hate when that happens. Like that. What do you mean key beam? Aha, it's because the menu here, there was an Android version of it also, but we just call it menu for now. Okay, that's good. It's based on, because I changed it. Okay, that's good. Hello, Plancalcul. How was the Jai experience? Plancalcul asks. Plancalcul, even. So this, now I'm doing some Odin. I did I've done 2 streams in Jai where I was. Let me just quickly show what I did in Jai. Here's my Jai code. I start it and it takes a while. This chat XP thing. Is it, you mean this one? Yeah, I don't know what it is. That took forever to build. This is what I did in Jai. I did a little thingy where you can run around and shoot and then there's some power up the spawn sometimes, so you can get that. I did this. I never programmed any Jai before, so I just looked at some examples and threw this together. Jai has a bit similar syntax to Odin, so it was quite easy to. It was quite a lot similar syntax to Odin, so it's quite easy to get into. My Jai experience was that I haven't used the meta programming yet at all, really. So I can't say anything about that. And that's supposed to be, the main big feature that Odin doesn't have. So because I haven't used that, and because I'm not that interested in meta programming, I would say that there wasn't. I didn't feel like it did anything for me that Odin doesn't do. It didn't make programming more enjoyable than it does in Odin. With maybe the exception, and I haven't played around with that enough, maybe I prefer the package system in Jai. Maybe. but I haven't made anything big enough to see if that becomes untrue after a while, because it's a bit more loosey-goosey, and Odin is a bit angry uncle. Odin has angry uncle package system. Not allowed to do things. Well, something like that. But other than that, it works fine. You can probably, since they constantly say that things are going to change so much, I don't dare to use it that much, because they're like, oh, maybe John wants to change a lot of the syntax, and I'm like, okay, then I'm not going to use it to make anything that is even remotely serious, because it doesn't seem stable, and the libraries are not as polished as in Odin, but it works. That's the thing, the compiler, I downloaded it, installed it, works, no big problems, so it seems like a good product. The language is a bit more chaotic, I would say. It just feels a bit it feels a bit chaotic at times if you compare it to Odin. That's all. That's it. I think you can, if you don't want meta programming or the relaxed package system, then I'm not sure there is any big reason to use it over Odin, because it's also less polished in every other way not every other way, but in most other ways it's less polished. It's not very C++-ish. I mean, I would say it's quite C-ish. Also, because it's sort of, mostly structs and procedures, and you can have parametric polymorphism and all that. If there is a big overhaul, then it will be a program to automatically convert your code over. Yeah. I think I said this about many Jai things. I believe it when I see it. I wouldn't. Yeah, I don't trust that. I think what's going to happen is this. It's going to be, there might be syntax changes, which might inform many syntax things are independent of the semantics of the language. But there are some things that, there are certain things that you can't do due to the semantics of the language in how you write the language, in the syntax. And the other reverse is also true, that maybe John wants to change the syntax of Jai to something that is semantically incompatible with how it is right now, and then there is no automatic conversion, because you're gonna have to change. There's gonna be maybe you can do an automatic conversion, but the more semantic differences there are, the more it's gonna be then you're gonna have to start reasoning about the code rather than just changing semicolon there or something, because in some cases syntax is just syntax. It's just you could change it for something else. You could, instead of proc, you could write cat. Would work. But if you realize that something else is wrong in the syntax that has also semantic meaning, then you might be in trouble. If you could drop the semicolon, that would be great. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Yeah, it's also semicolons in weird places in Jai. Okay, I'm not gonna talk about syntax because it doesn't matter. But yeah, there are semicolons in some weird places as well, like case labels. Palonka says, "What's keeping you from giant Odin is future job prospects." Yeah, you should not like. I would say that. I mean, I know C++ and stuff as well, and C, and I've programmed those enough. And then this, I could go back. I could start to work at that job with C++ tomorrow, and get up to speed again, even though I've forgotten some stuff. That would be fine. So, someone who wants to hire you is not looking at like. If you just say, no, I know these languages, but I know many languages, and learning another one that's like, that's the first few weeks of the work, but you're going to be here for a long time, so it's going to be fine. So if you just learn, if you know some of these languages that are similar, you can argue that it's going to be fine. It's more of a confidence thing, really. You say like, no, like people be like, oh, but you don't know C or something, like, what's this Odin thing, like, no, that's fine, I'm gonna learn that, it's fine, because I can do it. And then you can, it's fine. If you know Odin and you're good at it, then you can learn C. If you know C and you're good at it, then you can learn Odin. You wouldn't need to know any, as long as you know one language in that category, then you can just be like, no, it's gonna be fine. But I understand the job prospect. I mean, I still understand the concern. I would use Odin and Jai for also if you want to have fun at home and do your project or something, you can use it. Okay, this stream is not very productive because I'm so tired that I'm not making any sense. Is key pressed? Which one do I use? Do I just use pressed in here? In here I just use pressed. I think later. So here is a thing in Raylib, right? Is key pressed? These names bamboozled me at the start. Yeah, but you can learn Odin then and learn C later if you want. Well, the dev lead, Stefan says, I was in a job interview for a C++ position, and when I told I was messing with a C-like language, Odin, the dev, had a weird look. Well, if someone does that, then maybe it's not a good place to work. Because this sounds like a red flag that someone would be like concerned or stuff like that. But on the other hand, people, what did you say? A girl gotta eat. No, but you have to make money somehow, and sometimes some people have to do the jobs even though there's an annoying dev lead. Yeah, the take home was a heavy class OOP code basically. Yeah, that's another red flag. And if you have that combined with someone like being weirded out by not doing things in C++, then it's like are you? Then it feels like the dev lead is like a programming language fanboy or something, which is programming language fanboy as a boss at a company. That's maybe the biggest red flag. Yeah, with C, C make files, import, and you have headers. I would say if you learn C, what you can do is you can do it like the Odin compiler is written. It's written in C++, but you can just not use, like inside your project, you can use import the C++ files instead. And just use, so instead of you include like C++ files, you just make it into one big compilation unit and compile that and have no headers. then it becomes like an Odin package, essentially. All the things in the thing sees everything else done. In Raylib, there is this is key pressed, is key down, is keys released, blah blah blah. These names, I think especially this name and this name is they're strange. But yeah, you also need the import for, importing other libraries, of course. And then you need to maybe import their library file in C and blah blah blah. Yeah, I would recommend you can use ChatGPT to ask simple question, but I wouldn't go any further than that. What's a good name here? Is key pressed, is key down, is key released, is key up. I think I never used that. I think it's that's just if the key is not pressed. It's a redundant. I wouldn't have that in API. Is key held, I think, is a better name for is key down. I guess you could have like was key pressed, was key released, is key down, held. Yeah, is key released is true. Yeah, both pressed and released. Yeah. What about pressed if you combine it with the mouse? Yeah, I saw in the Jai input library that comes with Jai, the mouse is actually in a key, so you can check like is the mouse button pressed or held or released. Yeah. Palanco says, I find it hard to do software architecture. I just keep doing what I do and refactor when it smells bad. Yeah, that's the correct way. That's the best way to learn. Like eventually you will just have a it's not about being able to like make a perfect plan at the start. It's just like when you see a problem, you have seen it before, so you know kind of a good direction to go. So the way you learn that is by just you do what you do and refactor when it smells bad. And then you will get those little like grains of knowledge to use. And then that way you won't end up like it's no big deal in there's no like if you don't know how to do something, just try doing the simplest thing. Don't try to like read up on how to do it the most optimal way, because you're just gonna accidentally over-architect something for or over-engineer something for your particular problem, because you don't know what the solution is for really. So just do the simplest thing you can all the time. And of course that will sometimes bite you because you needed something more complicated, but after a while you learn when the simple thing is good and when you need something more complicated. You will see these things that repeat every now and then. So always make the simplest thing always do the simplest thing unless you have personal experience of a specific situation where you know it's good to do this more complex thing because I know that it will give me trouble later because you've seen it. If you haven't seen it and you don't have like, don't know that, then don't do anything. Like don't go on the internet and like find someone's cool solution to a problem you never heard of and then start like it won't make any sense, right? But it's you know, it's, I think some people forget that second part, that, you know, some people say like, oh, always just do the simplest thing. I'm like, well, yes, always do the simplest thing unless you've seen the exact situation and you know that there will be a problem and you need a slightly more complicated thing. But that you can only get there by doing the simplest thing a few times. Hello, welcome. Yeah, I'm trying to name this crap. Well, sometimes the simplest thing is obscure for newbies. Yeah, I get that. But I think the problem people sometimes do then is that they start looking for a solution rather than like, if you're a newbie, you probably and gotten as far as you know what a function is and you know what a struct is. Well, then you just try to combine those things in different ways to get some kind of result. Even if the code feels like stupid. But it's easy to start finding someone's cool solution online that uses lots of fancy things, and you're trying to do that, and then after a while you have no idea what your code is doing anymore, or something like that. But anyways, I'm not sure I like the thing. Like some people put the mouse buttons in they make just not a keyboard key. They just make like key, like that, and then they put the mouse in there. It makes a bit sense because on all modern platforms you can only have one mouse. It's funny on DOS games, and I remember playing Settlers 2 or something on DOS, and there was split screen games with mouse where you have one mouse each. So you play split screen and you have two mouse cursor, one mouse cursor on each side, and that's not possible on Windows or any operating system really, because they only have one cursor, and you connect two mice, then both control the same cursor, which is usually what you want, but it doesn't even seem to be a hardware. No, it doesn't even seem to be like a driver level thingy to fetch the individual things or something. But yeah. Is key held? I don't like down, because is key down sounds like is key pressed. To me, is key down, I'm like, oh, that means the mouse went down, that the key went down. So held is more like it's held in place. Is key released? I mean, that's what it's supposed to say there. Is key held? And someone said in the chat that I don't understand why. Key is, yeah. Why not use key is pressed instead? Or just do this. Key pressed. Key here. Well, okay. The problem with doing it like that is that it might sound pressed and held are synonymous. Well, yes. Okay, so if you do like this, then you can think that both these mean that you can think that both these. You can look at this one and be like, oh, this is the one for checking if it went down. So down sounds like, oh, it went down, but this means it's held. This is the one that it went down. Key held. I mean, these are also things you learn by using the library for a bit, so it's not a big deal. It's just, I'm just trying to think of, I don't think is key down. Is key held? Maybe we do that. Key is held. Key, but it's also a bit like this, right? Key was pressed. Key was released. Key is held. Well, you don't know if it. I mean, it was pressed sometime between the previous frame. Yeah, pressed means that it was pressed this frame. Oh, yeah, it sounds like it happened the last frame. Key is pressed. Key, naming things. Key held. Key pressed. Then is the question if this is how you want to do your input, of course. But I think it's good for doing this kind of things, having, like, you can have an event thing instead, but kind of synthesizers, attack and decay. Key release, key pressed, key held. This is a terrible thing to do when you're tired, because you can't come up with anything. Key pressed, key held. Key is pressed right now. Yeah. Exactly. It's key press sounds like good old GDScript method. Yeah, it sounds like a callback kind of, or something. Key pressed once. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I understand why. I'm just doing things. I shut up and do things. Shut up, Carl. Do things. Okay. Hello there, Tarnab. Welcome. Welcome to Carl Didn't Sleep Enough and tries to name things in an API. Yeah, by adding is, it's 100% a bool return. Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Key pressed, key released, key held. Yeah. Yeah, it's like there's one word. We need a new word in English for something that was pressed. Yeah, there are these things, right, with I've seen APIs where they don't use get at all, like this either. You use like screen width. You have set when you set it, and when you fetch something, there's no extra word. Like it's just the thing, what you're getting, sort of. Like this. Yeah, of course I can change the implementation. This is a bit annoying with these two too much. I kind of want to tidy it up and change it here. But yeah, you can experiment here and just change the names and just look at it. And then change it later down here if you want to. Screen width get screen. Oh, you mean you have both. Well, yeah, but I don't think you should have both, really, because then like it just becomes less clear with code on like the internet and stuff. Set state. This is just a funny thing I added yesterday. This set state stuff is just because I did some kind of hot reload and I have global state inside it. So there's different ways to do that. Some people are like, oh, I try to support that stuff, out of the box. With Raylib, if you do hot reload, you will need to use the DLL version of Raylib because it has global state inside that is just dies if you have a statically linked one when your game DLL gets reloaded. So if Raylib comes in as a DLL, then the DLL has its own lifetime for the globals inside it, and everything is fine. However, having to use a DLL version of a library just because you want to preserve, some global state, I think is not super good. So I just return a state when I initialize the library, and then you can run set state if you need to, and that's for when if you there is one global state thing inside it. That one is any state of the library would go into there, and then you can just run this thing after hot reload and send it back in, and then you're all set up again. You don't need a DLL version of it. You're done. It's just a little thing because I'm so used to doing those kind of workflows. So I think a library that has global state inside it should have some way for you to restore a global state in case of I'm not renaming things. I'm making a wrapper so that later I can remove Raylib and just do like open window with WinAPI and draw things. This will be no Raylib. But that's just future plans. Get screen with. So I don't know what. I'll think a bit about this with the names here. If it should just be screen with is key press, blah blah blah, like that. Okay, let's go back here. This is slowest stream ever. Is key pressed? Is key. No, key pressed. Uh-huh. Good morning, Chris. Welcome to my very tired stream where people ask questions and I lose my train of thought while answering, so I don't remember what I'm answering anymore. Maybe not DX12, we'll see about that. DX12 is a bit, maybe DX11 or something, we'll see. There's no big point in using DX12 for that kind of stuff. It just makes your life sad. Okay. What more do we have in here? RL dot set shapes texture window should close. That one is. That's my. I don't love that function. It's always been a bit. In Railib of not in this program, but in Railib often have like for not RL dot window should close, and it's like. It just feels a bit weird that you always have to have this inversion, and then it's like window should. Okay, it's not. Yeah, the window hasn't been closed yet because you do that manually. It's just that someone pressed a button to close it. I think, but couldn't it also be closed already? Like something in the OS has just closed it, and then it's actually closed already. Well, it's not running. It's not running flagger. This is just. It's just a thing to check if the window is still valid. Kind of. But I guess window should. It's not a terrible name or a concept. Yeah, it checks close key and window express. Yeah, something like that. But it's not, the window you can't have while window open because the window will close later, right? So it's still open. In many cases, I think you could force it closed and then it's sort of closed already. So I guess window, yeah, let's wrap that one like it is. Because I can't come up with. You don't need to remember to add kill window. The coffee was okay. It was a bit harsh because I used one of the darker beans. That has a bit less nice taste. Wrap it with a knot. It's fine to just wrap things straight up also. I mean, I've done that for many things here. The important thing right now is just to get to like not importing raylib, and then I can make a stub out of this, start changing things, and then I can tweak the API as I go. Because when I realized that things need to change, it's a bit of a weird way to do things, because this project here is not very big, so maybe it will be good, a good test, but it's a bit of a weird way to do things. Here is a thing: begin drawing and end drawing. I'm not even sure that's how you want to do things, because end drawing does lots of weird things. Yeah, El Monetina says, I never liked that function. For me, it's better use check a key or UI element to be pressed. Yeah. Actually, you know what? Close button. This has more to do with the title bar. It's like this. Once okay, window should close is like it's a bit weird, because I would like it to be more like related to the close button or the action of. You can use like Alt F4 also in Windows, and then it's like, oh, it didn't actually press any button on it. It's just more of a call to close the window, and then it's sort of window should close. But window should close in raylib does more, because there's also like a by default escape for some reason also calls that one. But yeah, be right back. Short break. Hello. Chair cam. Yeah, that's the chair cam. It's a very good cam. It's not like you have to use that function. No, exactly. You can check a button press and then use close window and break the loop. That works fine. Window should close. The only thing you need is, like, there is something there, like, you know, did you press this thing up here, or do you use like a keystroke to signal to the window that it should be closed? Then it's not just a button press anymore. Then it's something in the API that you're doing. But yeah, I don't know. It's like window close requested, but yeah, close requested. It's a bit weird to know. I can keep it like that for now. Here we have begin drawing, end drawing. This is one of the things that I think a bit weird in Raylib. I would maybe, like, what does begin drawing actually do in Raylib? It sets up a matrix for the scaling and does some stuff, but it feels a bit like it should be like this, and then apply screen scaling. Why is that there? Why isn't it like apply 2D camera transformation to model view? And that one I understand, but is screen scaling related to some kind of high DPI stuff, which is just so you know, the high DPI stuff in Raylib is more or less broken. It's like a hack to get an app that doesn't support it to use it. If you want to actually support it, then you should you shouldn't have it turned off, I think. You have it turned off, and then you just check the scale DPI and you use that to scale your own camera or something like that, if I remember correctly. It's just because the high DPI stuff, it was added late as sort of a hack or something, it seems like, from what I'm chatting on the Odin the Raylib Discord. Because I was using it and someone was like, no, you don't actually shouldn't use that. Yeah, it's good with games that you can scale the UI. It's just this is for the DPI scale if you have scaling set on your desktop, like a monitor scale in the operating system. And you can fetch this and use it, and don't turn on the, like, when you in the flags there is this high DPI. That one messes stuff up in other ways. I don't use it in really because it has so many problems. I think what you should do, maybe you should write the library yourself, is you tell Windows, hi, I want high DPI, because then the size of the window will be correct. And then the user of the library can request that DPI scale to do things. I think that's how you should do it. Anyways, I was thinking about process events here and begin drawing, because if you look at begin drawing, it gets the time here. Hello, Bill. It gets the time here, and then it sets the screen scale. This is probably useless. So this and this is useless maybe also. I'm not even sure it should be. Okay, so it gets the update time. Previously, also the measure for update versus draw is not accurate. Only the total frame time is accurate. The total frame time. Get frame time. When do they? Okay. So this is at end drawing. It says the update time and the draw time. Draw is current minus previous. Previous is time with current. So this is how much time it took since. This is how much time it took since begin drawing was started, because it said previous there. And then we have current here is what it is now. No, because it's just set there. And previous is here. Blah, blah, blah. So this will give you the amount of time since begin started, which is the draw time. And the update time is the time from when this happens to when begin drawing starts again. However, couldn't you just what is the draw time even used for? Suspicious. Why can't it just be happen once? So the frame time, you just compute it once. It's just from the exact same point in one frame to the next, because that seems to be what this is. What I'm trying to say is that I'm not sure that begin drawing, end drawing like that is. It's also that end drawing does all the input checking. That's also has been like, if you don't have end drawing in your program, your window hangs, and I think that's bizarre. Because there's no event processing. Because you would probably do like I know it makes it easier because your update loop just becomes begin, end, and then there is something happening between. I understand that. But you could have something like that at the start. You process your events, then you can use your events, and then at some point you can start drawing. And when you start drawing, you probably do something like begin drawing. Yeah. There is, for those who don't know in Raylib, there is end drawing. There is custom, so you can do it manually. You can say swap screen buffer, poll input events, and wait time, which is the three things that end drawing kind of does in a way. You swap the screen buffer, you can poll for input events. I think you still should call end drawing to get the times here. If not, support custom frame control. Okay, this seems to swap screen buffer, wait time. When does it... Hello, SK Sun. Is this in end drawing? When does it set? When does it? So are you supposed to update? You do the timing yourself if you don't have that. Is that what they're saying? Which is fine. You can use like, you can have like times in start or something. Is a proc that returns on F64 or something. Double check that. Yeah. Where is it? Where's core? What is it called? Trying to explore really a bit here. Core data. Okay, these are all doubles. And then get frame time. Did I? Okay, I removed the backend. Then it, because the frame time will be so small that it's fine. Is usually what happens is that you use a double to count the whole. What's to say? You count the whole. This is like times in start, and then you can use. When it's just a difference between two frames, you can use an F32, for example, a 32-bit float. Just when it gets big, then the whole number part gets big eventually, and you start losing precision. But yeah, but we don't really need this at all. In Odin, because you can just use the time. Like you can literally do this. We can go to game here. Do import core time, I think. Right? I clashed the namespace. Time is this F64. Okay. Yeah, I store the total time here for some reason. Let's remove that one for now. Let's move all these. And oh, that's silly of me. Add it on like that. Let's see if we remove that and compile, see what breaks. Start time. Okay, the reason I use it in the player for some kind of thing. And then if we look in time.odin, in here we have now gives you a time. And then time since, yeah, you see I have all these already. Time since, what does that do? Well, yeah, so let's just remove this and try to use the so here we would do stage.time, time.time. I guess the question here is what time actually does. Because you probably don't want to do this because I guess it might count up during the frame. And you would want everything during a frame to be like, this is the time. I think. Let's look at this one. What does it do? Get system time process. Blah, blah, blah. So this one might vary during the frame, so I don't think that's what you want in a game. In a game you want like this frame starts at this time and everything. I think it's actually an interesting question I haven't thought that much about. Like in games you tend to be like, okay, the current time is this is what the time was when the frame started, and then we have delta time, which is how much it was since the previous one. What happens in fact in a game if you start using like, oh no, I just use time.now in weird places, and then it starts like things halfway through a frame started at a slightly different time. Does it matter a lot? I mean, I guess it gives it's not gonna matter in the sense that you're not gonna notice it, I think. But does it break anything? In any case, it doesn't it's not a big deal right now. So with that in mind, that you would like something that is frame related to frames, I guess it's good if the library has it, because otherwise, well, you could do it yourself too. But yeah. Not sure how to handle time best. So it's all interconnected, right? How you handle time, how you set up your begin and end drawing stuff, and yeah, it's all might affect each other. End drawing, begin drawing. Well, that's for now. As usual, we'll just wrap raylib. Lots of thinking and then let's just wrap it. We don't need to come up with everything here. That. Yeah, have a nice day, Palonko. So what do we have left in here? We have some get frame time. Here is another one. Maybe I'll just add comments here. And then so we can write some comments about our thought process, and then we can go back to it and sort of it's like I don't, in Raylib you have to recompile Raylib with these support frame control flag to get these stuff. I know Raylib is supposed to be for like learning game development, so maybe you want to quickly get up and running. But I think if you think like it being for, if you make something for a slightly, if I make something for myself that's slightly more organized, slightly more, I'm just saying the wrong, organized. If I make something slightly more my own, for my own needs, then I would probably just have something like this as default, and there is no other way to do it. It's just slightly more to get going than 3 lines, but if you're not targeting the absolute beginners with it, no, it's not a 3D game. I won't have any 3D in this library. It will be 2D only. I will not even I will not, because then also all the code becomes simple. I think Raylib has this problem of supporting 2D and 3D. I know Ray makes it to first, he teaches his students first to do a 2D game, and then they can do a 3D game using the same library. But that just makes it the API a bit well, usually doing 3D and then dropping down to 2D can be quite the okay experience. Like if many game engines first are 3D and then they add a 2D thing and stuff, but there will certainly be things that feel a bit weird when you have been like 3D first and then 2D, or you want to support both at the same time or whatever. I think it's better to just like, no, 2D. Because my idea here is that I can use this for my own game, and then I can release the library. Anyways, so we have this get frame time stuff here. Let's just wrap that. But I think also is thinking about these API things, like how I can wrap Raylib, and I have this file here. That already is like, what I talked about with the having some kind of separate API file. That's the front-facing thing of a library. Because I can do that, and then I can easily make a stub. I can just copy all these, right, into a new file with nothing in them. I can just copy the signatures, make a file, and then I have a stubs for everything. If I want to, if the library is more like, it's just whatever is exported from this file, then I'm like, okay, I guess I copy that and start and just remove everything. I mean, that's not a big amount of work, but it's easy to get like an initial idea of like, what is the APIs, what is the current API surface. So yeah, but I think this style I do here works okay for doing like an API. Like I talked at the start about how one could do like use a foreign block and when you use a precompiled library, but you can't use that for your Odin package that's compiled as source code. If you used to import it as a normal package. But this stuff is okay. I like that I can do this so I don't have to repeat, I don't have to boilerplate pass on parameters here. That's because that just makes it a bit too annoying to experiment with the API and like change things around. I mean, I still have to have change it in here in the implementation if I change it here, but at least it's not like change here and then change how it's passed and then go to the thing. Like it's one extra thing. Now it's just like, okay, those two. Mm-hmm. I don't know why I do this. gmem accumulate time. I'm just supposed to in raylib like oh, this is for doing fixed time step update things. Yeah, I will get back to that. That's it's not that big of a deal. It's just that this thing is okay. What's not okay is this. Well, it might be okay. I take the delta time and I add the converter to F64, but it's already an F64 in raylib. It's downcast to F32, and then I do it back, and then it's lost some precision already, which won't matter maybe in a frame, but over a long time maybe it can matter when you just add it back like this. It's a weird way to do it because I mean, can't I just do this? Won't that work fine? Well, it seems like it. Well, then I have to have this as well. You know what we could call the library? We could call it Odin game, and then it's shortened to OG. So just original gangster everywhere in your code. Amazing idea. Now it's gonna start being cringe package names like in Jai. For text rendering, like currently it's using some kind of draw text here. I might redo the text rendering completely. I would like maybe, I mean, some kind of bitmap based text rendering is maybe okay, but I will explore that within this game, how to draw text in a nicer way, I think. And then maybe put, I mean, in Raylib you can only do like SDF text, but that's not the whole thing. It's also like you can use bitmap fonts and stuff, but also using some kind of on-demand texture what's it called? On-demand font loader thingy that loads the things you need when you need them. There are such things available called, like, I don't know what they're called. Is it Font Stash or something? I have to research this. I always wanted to use something like that, so then you can support, other languages nicely. I think. I don't know. I made Cat and Onion, but it's only in English and it has a bitmap font. So yeah. So let's just for now disable all the text, maybe. Well, then the editor will break down because the editor has lots of text. It's a bit of a not a chicken and egg problem, but it's a bit of a problem. There's text in here, you see, down here, the little menu, and but the important thing right now is not to get these things. Like, I can disable all the text right now. And let's go through and just disable everything related to the font. Okay, then I won't be able to measure text anymore in here, but yeah. Maybe I just want some placeholder text rendering instead. So I disable all the I don't port any of the font loading stuff. I just have like a basic. It just uses, like, it can use the raylib ugly. Yeah, maybe I can use the raylib default font, the funny one, for now. What is that you do? What? Draw Text Pro. So you see, I do lots of these things everywhere. This one. Okay, then maybe that's a good idea. So I can chat says I can change raylib default font to your own. I mean, yeah, I could just pass my own font here and hide that inside the thing. Maybe we'll do that for now. So I don't have to port any of the font stuff because I want to redo that anyways. Plus X font size. Okay, which ones do I use here? Draw text. Draw Text Pro. Text, middle, origin size. I never use the rotation. Use the origin. So I'm not gonna have this one. That one is silly. So pos is a vec2. Good. We're gonna have font size is an f42. Or is an integer, is it? Oh, that's just because this one is in integers, but whatever. Spacing I don't care about right now. Rotation origin is the one. That's... But origin you can get by just shifting a position, right? I think. I think you can just do this. I think we can do everything with this one. For now. I think we just do that way. We just use draw text ex and we pass in a font. The font we load at the start. This is all a bit tricky to set up because it uses the texture from the atlas in here. So yeah, let's see. Okay. Just import raylib up here to hack in the font like this. Then we set it Is that what we want to do? Or should we just pass? Need some way to get the font in there temporarily until we can get something else. Let's start off by not using the font. We can just do this, I think. KL.draw text, and you send in your text, and then this is a little vector instead. Then this a little size, and then you're done. And these little procedures here, these to convert, they're just there because I haven't converted the colors yet. Hi Rasvan, I'm making a little Raylib wrapper in the hopes that I can maybe later write my own implementation and change the API to something of my own. Because this was that. See if that works. This one is just, that's the auto reload, which I think you press F1 or no? Is it F1 you press? He pressed F1, okay. So that didn't render properly. Wait, is that draw text dx? Font size and then spacing. Color. Position. Why didn't that work? I think something is broken with maybe it's my, what if I do draw set camera? I think it's, well, maybe it's this, just rl.end mode 2D. Maybe that's the problem. Oh, yeah, there's a little bug in my, so I have that. Oh well, it's 11 o'clock. I have to go now, but I will continue thinking about these things. Essentially, what I will do is continue wrapping these things. When it's an obvious thing I can change, that's easy, I will do that. Otherwise, I will just wrap it over. And then once we have everything working like that, then I'll try to change some stuff I can still change while using Raylib that I need to see something to think about here. And then I can, so the question in chat is why you're making a wrapper, because then eventually I can take all these procedures here and I can stub them out to a new implementation and just implement something in pure Odin. And then I can change the API to move away from things that I don't like, but that needs to be there right now because it's so tricky to change them with how Raylib works. So then you would have, in the end, you would have like a 2D thing for making games with Odin for my purposes, but maybe I'll put it up online somewhere also. But we'll see. I'm just playing around right now. Anyways, I have to go now. So have a nice day. I'll see you later. Bye bye.